Advocates. I think the first member of the General Assembly, and candidly somebody who people were a little surprised to hear who applauded that decision, was Lynn Watchman. He spent time getting to understand the prevalence of that disease. He spent time understanding how there are ways in which, with insurance coverage, children who have autism can lead productive and active and healthy lives. And we want to thank you for your leadership and helping us with that. He's also reached across the aisle on breast cancer awareness. So a guy who's been the champion poster child for the pro-business folks, whether it's NFIB, the Chamber, the Farm Bureau, the manufacturers, or others. You know, you might think as chair of the health committee, the guy might not necessarily be somebody who's going to listen to sort of things that deal with how insurance companies have to structure their policies to make sure that if a woman is suffering from breast cancer, she has certain rights available to her following that surgery that will allow her to have kind of dignity and quality of life that she deserves. And you know, Lynn, we thank you for that too. Lastly, I just say, you know, this real sharp focus that the legislature and specifically the House has had around this epidemic of prescription drug abuse, opiate addictions, how that impacts children, how it impacts our NICUs. We've had no shortage of champions here in the House who want to dive into it. But this man right here, Lynn Watchman, has really been sort of a standard bearer for making sure that we're getting the right policies in place on how prescribing patterns ought to be dealt with. Frankly, making sure we have the right data to make informed policy decisions that are going to make sure that we don't unintentionally erect state laws that will inhibit our providers' ability to provide the kind of care we expect. And we thank you for that. You know, lastly, I just shared, this is something that doesn't show up on the standard biography, but I like to believe you can judge the quality of somebody by what they don't want you to necessarily know about them. And Lynn Watchman, you know, following the destruction and catastrophe that happened down in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina came through, was one of the first people to spend time to go down to the New Orleans area and devote his time, energy, and resources towards not only rebuilding that community and helping provide assistance to those that were so struck by that tragedy, but also, as a Culligan salesman, as you might imagine, bring them some water. So with that, it's my great honor and privilege to introduce to you the chair of the House Health and Aging Committee, the Honorable Lynn Watchman.
I'm already dreading leaving the legislature. After the end of the year, though. Let me kind of start maybe where I was going to start at the end up front, because it's the issue of the day. It's been the issue of the year for many of us House Republicans, as Nick spoke to. That's his prescription drug and opiate addiction problem. I want to especially speak to you, directly to you doctors who can influence your peers. I presume most of the pediatricians in the room don't prescribe many, if any, opiates, but I'm sure you know others who do. You know, if I run into one more constituent or one more heartbroken family who tells me about how their doctor sent them home with a 30 or 60 or 90-day prescription of addictive drugs to a teenager, like happened to my granddaughter, I'm going to pull my hair out. And I have plenty of hair to pull out, but it hurts when you pull your hair out, so I'd rather not pull my hair out anymore. So, you know, the real solution for this prescribing problem, overprescribing problem, as I say it, is the medical community. And I just plead with you who have influence over your peers to have these discussions with your peers about being careful about how much of this terribly addictive drug they send home with their patients. You know, I've had two of my colleagues tell me that when they were teenage, in this case, both daughters went to see their, in one case, a dentist, in one case, an MD, how their teenage daughters were sent home with a 30-day prescription of either Percocet or Vicodin with a 30-day refill for what I consider extremely minor, important but very minor surgeries that I think almost everybody I talked to agrees, very minor surgeries, especially from a pain management perspective. But their daughters were sent home with these, you know, the nicest way you can say is over ample supply of these addictive drugs. One of my colleagues' daughters had her prescription stolen, as happens so often, and they tried to divert drugs to other teenagers. I just plead with you. I'd be happy to get on my knees if it would make a difference, and plead with you that we've got to cut the supply of these prescription drugs off, and the doctor community is where it all starts and where it needs to be solved. So I applaud you for the work you do. You know, I'm just a Culligan man, as my son likes to call himself. He's third generation Culligan man in our family. When I came to Columbus 30 years ago, I knew a lot about nothing, frankly. I knew my family purchased health insurance. That's probably originally maybe one of the more important perspectives I thought I brought to the legislatures. I, over the years, sat in a lot of meetings with employees and with the insurance agents, the brokers, trying to figure out how we could buy the insurance that best suited our employees, and I think that's what most employers do. And you know, over the years, it's developed on what can we afford to pay for, and so on and so forth. We sat at our table and talked quite a bit about you know, a huge problem in America that I see, that we have more takers, or getting more takers than givers, or as I like to say it more succinctly, more tax takers than tax givers, and that's kind of the overall problem as I see in America. At least with you know, being able to afford health care. But one of the greatest honors and pleasures I've had in my career is to, as Nick said, have been honored by the President of the Senate at that time, Bill Harris and Doug White, and now Speaker Batchelder, to have been appointed to the chairman of the respective Senate and House Health Committees. And for me, it's been a humbling experience, a thankful experience, and just the experience of a lifetime over the years. And one of the most grateful things that I like to acknowledge is the wonderful access that our committee members who engaged in the process have. That is access to the best knowledge, the best people in the world in healthcare. And many of you are sitting in the room that have either been there or influenced, been participants in many ways of that process. We do have one doctor in the House, literally. We've had a couple of pharmacists over the years. But most of us who come to the legislature are, you know, we're lay people. We're not doctors. We're not nurses. I have a daughter who is a nurse. I love my nurses. And so, you know, how does a Culligan man try to make good public policy? Well, the only way we can do that is by those professionals, again, many in the room here, your colleagues from around the state, who so willingly give up their time and their talents to come to Columbus or meet with us, as we did with the Opiate Task Force Committee, travel around the state and learn about the issues and learn what really is most important to you is the professional opinion of what you bring to the table. Because again, what does the Culligan man know about healthcare? Not much, except that I'm so appreciative and thankful that your professions, your industry, particularly children's hospitals, have been, again, so generous and so kind and so willing to participate in this wonderful political process. And I say wonderful political process because it can be a wonderful thing. Nick actually reminded me of some of the things that we've worked on over the years. My memory is rather short on history of issues we've worked on. But in my not so humble opinion, I think the legislature, many times on a very bipartisan basis, has worked on tough issues and had some really good outcomes. Not always, but usually. And it's been an honor to have the support, again, of the children's hospitals. We were just talking about our visit to Toledo. You'll never forget how impactful that was for me to see those addicted babies and how common this opiate addiction with pregnant mothers is becoming. When I visit different hospitals, you know how devastating it is. I mean, how horrible it is to have a baby born with this addiction, and how wonderful it is that you're there to take care of them. So it's this issue for Representative Sprague, Representative Smith, Dr. Johnson are some of the leadership people that thankfully are going to be here when I'm gone. And I mention those names very specifically because I think your government affairs people all know them, know how much passion they have for issues and how nice they are to work with. But I wanted to mention those legislators, and there are others, but those specifically, they are a great leadership team looking to the future in the House Republican caucus that, as I told Representative Sprague last night at his fundraiser, that I truly feel a lot of comfort knowing that they're going to be here for a few years. With term limits, you're here at the most 8 years, unless you can do like I did, flip over to the Senate and maybe come back. There's some great leadership that those of you who have the responsibilities and pleasures and everything else you want to use to work with future colleagues of mine, we're in good hands. I want to take a moment to publicly thank Speaker Batchelder. Speaker and I go back 30 years. Speaker Batchelder was one of those, along with the late Bob Netzley. Nick, you were around. Yes, okay, some of you, one of those great World War II veterans. The Speaker and I reminisce just a little bit here. Speaker and I were talking the other day, he had forgotten, which Speaker doesn't forget hardly anything, that Bob Netzley was blown off this battleship in the South Pacific and lived, has a Purple Heart. But I'm always so thankful that I got to come to this legislature to serve with a bunch of World War II veterans. They were the toughest, kindest, most generous generation. Sorry to reminisce so much, but and now what an honor to have people like Dr. Johnson, Iraqi war veteran. He was offered by the U.S. Army to serve as the state medical director for the National Guard, and I think oversees several states. What a great honor, but instead of doing those other things, has been a great service to the entire state. So, to go from World War II veterans, and that's one thing I regret in life, never having served our country in the military, to now seeing so many of the Josh Mandels served in the U.S. Marines, did 2 tours in Iraq. A lot of other people that now, the younger generation who served our country, are running for the legislature again. It speaks of a lot of things. One of them speaks of the type of people the Speaker Batchelder's recruited to our Republican caucus. I think our caucus, last caucus, this caucus, are second to none in the 30 years I've served with. And for those of you who know how important public policy is, it should be comforting and reassuring to know that we have Speaker Batchelder and others have recruited such great men and women to serve here. Locally, Representative Ann Gonzalez, great legislator. It's funny, I warned her first term, I said, don't carry too many bills because they're a lot of work. And my Lord, she passed more bills her first 2 years in office I think I had my entire career. Thank you. But we have some real workhorses in the House, and just can't give them enough praise. Well, I've probably gone on long enough, but I really, really, really appreciate, again, the medical community at large, whether you're CEO, whether you're doctors, or something in between, your government affairs people in your respective children's hospitals, your state association. You hire great people. I really enjoy working with even Janelle, who's so new. We go way back too. So no, you hire great people, and politics is like any other thing. It's more fun to work with good, competent, nice people than it is to grouchy, incompetent people. And you hire great people in your respective hospitals and again your state association. And I really enjoyed working with all of them. I know most of them pretty well. They know where the door is. They know if they knock, and somebody's open to you and your issues. So, once I have to kick myself, remind me I'm not quite up yet because I get down to dumps thinking I'm out. But I look forward to working with you and your issues for the rest of my term. We have a super busy agenda. Unlike most committees, we're kind of break for Easter break, but kind of not break for Easter break. We have a lot of work to do. The MBR has probably some important issues to some of you. really my main task the rest of my career is going to get these opiate-related pieces of legislation through the Senate and signed by the governor, because I've met too many families with too many young people who have either become addicted and gone through the crises of trying to manage addictions, to worse yet, the ones who have watched their sons and daughters die. I was giving a speech to my Kiwanis 3 weeks ago or so, and there was one young lady there. She was a guest of one of the dentists there. This story is actually kind of bizarre. Am I taking up too much time?
No, sir.
All right. You know you've been in the legislature too long when you can tell too many long stories, right? Anyway, I got done with my speech and was on the addiction problem. And a young lady came up and said, "Mr. Watson, I feel blessed that I was here today." And I go, "Why is that?" And she goes, "Well, I was addicted to prescription drugs, but I was able to quit when she found out she became pregnant. She had that gave her the will to quit using those drugs, at least temporarily." And she was not from Ohio, she was from Buffalo, New York, but I thought, you know, this problem it's rampant everywhere in the country. You read about how devastating the prescription drug use is in Florida, how those drugs come north, and but the problem is everywhere. But the rest of the story was kind of depressing. The dentist who she was a guest of started telling me a story about how a young woman from Putnam County comes in to see her monthly with a tooth pain, and she always sent her home. She was proud that she always sent her home with a 3 or 5 day supply of opiates. And I'm like, really? She comes in every month and you send her home with opiates? She goes, "Oh, well, she goes to see the MDs in the county. They send her home with a 30-day supply." You know, and so I keep going back to this issue. I keep going back to it because we have got to solve this problem. And we is you and I, we can legislate it. I know doctors don't, you don't like to have us tell you how to doctor. Frankly, I don't think most of us like to tell you how to doctor. But if doctors don't, and I personally, last year, doctors in Ohio, some PAs and some APNs, because as we all know, they can prescribe now too, but mostly medical doctors, prescribed over 822 million doses of opiates last year. And as I talk to my colleagues and many medical people who know much more than I do, I think a lot of us feel that, if we got down to maybe a couple 100 million doses of prescribing would probably be plenty to actually take care of the pain. And so we have a long way to go. When we closed the pill mills, I think we cut the supply of opiates by about 5%, which 5% maybe doesn't sound much, but when you're talking 5% of 800, and at that time probably 50 million doses, it's pretty substantial. But indeed, there are, there's partial or full bottles of Percocet and Vicodin, and probably, I don't know, I'm guessing 2/3 of the homes where they were prescribed weren't used. I mean, I had 2 back surgeries. Did the same dreaded thing that others do. I left the leftover bottles of Percocet Vicodin in the dresser drawer for probably a year before I pitched them. So please, 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 when you go back to your respective communities, make sure this is part of the discussion when you and your peers get together, because if you do that, and if you influence in a positive way, less prescribing, you're probably going to save a life or save a family from addiction. And as medical professionals, you've got to know how good that feels when you save lives. So I applaud you for the work that you do. I am thankful and will forever be grateful and thankful for our working together, our friendships, and problem solving that I think we've working together have done a lot of. And for the next 9 months, I look forward to serving you. And I'm kind of looking for a part-time job. I've got a resume, but I really don't know how to do that. So hopefully I'll get that done in a few days. But thank you for having me. Thank you for all you do. And God bless you and the work you do and the children's lives you save and make better. Thank you.